Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with a new SCAR 17 that we brought out from Copper Custom, and we're going to talk about the new US-made SCAR 17s that are on the market and kind of compare it to an original Belgium-made gun that was imported many years ago. This is an older gun I've had for quite some time. There are some changes that have taken place between the Belgium-made guns and the US-produced guns, including now a non-reciprocating charging handle. But there's some other changes they've made to the design that I think you're going to find interesting. But before we get started with today's video, guys, if you enjoy the content that we produce here at the Military Arms Channel, please take a moment to become part of our Patreon family. That's how we fund here at the Military Arms Channel. There's a link in the video description below. If you join us over on Patreon, you'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, along with some other perks as well. So there's a link down below. Please click that link. Now let's get started talking about the SCAR 17 and some of the changes that have been implemented to the US produced model. The SCAR, as we now know it today, was part of a SCAR program that took place quite some time ago to develop a rifle that was multi-caliber that the military could use. And ultimately, it really was kind of a flop. The 5.56 versions of the SCAR really didn't do very well. I believe the 75th Rangers actually used them for a short time before going back to the M4s. But the SCAR 17s wound up being used quite a bit in the special operations community. Navy SEALs, for example, like to use the SCAR 17 or the SCAR Heavy, as the military would know it, or the Mark 17. The gun that was made available to the US market, of course, was neutered, semi-automatic only. And this is an example of one of those early SCAR 17s. This rifle, in my mind, is probably one of the most interesting firearms of the, of recent design, because it takes the 30 caliber cartridge, some 62x51 NATO or 308. I'll just call it 308 going forward. It takes a 308, puts it into a very lightweight rifle that's extremely accurate and not punishing at all to shoot. So a lot of that has to do with the muzzle brake that's on the end of it, but also has a lot to do with the design of the gun itself. The gun makes extensive use of polymers, so you have a completely polymer stock back here, have a polymer lower, and you have basically aluminum upper receiver. The barrels in these are easily taken out and swapped. You just have to loosen some screws back here. You take the barrel out. It has sights that come with the gun that fold away for storage. There's a rear sight that comes with the gun as well. And then you have an adjustable gas block out here. Now this one has a Parkerized looking barrel, and we'll talk about that here in a moment as it compares to the new US made models, but this one was definitely made in Belgium and then imported by FN USA. You can see the Belgian markings there on the side of the receiver. And yes, I've never taken that little sticker off. So the gun is really, really nice. I mean, if you're looking for a, shiznit hits the fan type rifle, the SCAR 17 is definitely very high on my list of guns that would be something I would consider. But one of the things people really disliked about the gun was the fact that it had a reciprocating charging handle. And that made for a gun that many people, when they shoot it, they have their thumb up here or over here, and that it would cause a malfunction. If you do a magazine grip like this with your thumb up there, it's definitely going to get whacked by that charging handle. Now, I've done it. Everybody that's owned a SCAR 17 or 16 has done it most likely. You get whacked in the thumb by the charging handle. It doesn't hurt, but it does induce a malfunction. So it's a liability. And so many people have been petitioning the FN to release a version of the gun that doesn't have a reciprocating charging handle. And that's exactly what FN USA has done. They've introduced a new SCAR to the market, made right here in America, and it no longer has that reciprocating charging handle. So let's take a look at the new rifle, and let's do a comparison between the old and the new designs. Take a closer look at the bolt carrier and how that non-reciprocating charging handle works, and talk about whether or not, if you can find the parts, if you can convert your SCAR 17 to a non-reciprocating charging handle version of the rifle. If you guys haven't checked out Primary Arms online, please swing by and check out their website. They have all sorts of inventory that ranges from firearms to accessories, really good prices, fast shipping, outstanding customer support. If you use the code MAC and you purchase a PA branded optic or red dot sight with a magnified optic, you'll get a free scope mount with that MAC code. Or if you pick up a red dot sight or a prism sight, you'll get a free kill flash anti-reflective device. So please check out primaryarms.com. So this is the new US-made non-reciprocating charging handle SCAR 17. Let's talk about its outward changes, things that you can see without taking the gun apart. And if you take a look at the gun, it still has the 3 different colors of FDE. This one happens to be pea green on the upper receiver, but that will change from gun to gun. Generally speaking, the lower receiver will be a shade of brown, and then the stock will be a light color, tannish color. So these two colors rarely shift, but the upper receiver continues to shift in color and tone. But that's across the spectrum, going all the way back to the Belgium guns. When you look down on the gun, you're going to see the new charging handle system. Now, this is the non-reciprocating charging handle, so when the gun cycles, you can do a magazine hold, have your thumb up there, and you're no longer going to get whacked in the hand by the charging handle moving back and forth during firing, because it stays forward, locked in the forward position. So you'll notice, first of all, that the charging handle is downturned. If you look at it next to an original charging handle, which is just straight out of the receiver, this one's downturned and can be put in two different ways. You can do it down or turn it up if you so desire. You'll also notice something that was absent from the original design, and that's an optional charging handle on the right-hand side. And that's mostly because the original charging handle ran through the bolt carrier, and these charging handles don't directly interact with the bolt carrier at all. So that's why we can have two of them on here, and we'll delve more into that when we take the gun apart. Moving forward, have the same pick rails all the way around, same gas block with an adjustable gas regulator that does have a suppressor setting, and still in the FN owner's manual for this new rifle, it says, yeah, we've included a suppressor setting, but if you put a suppressor on your gun, you're going to void your warranty, so that hasn't changed. The barrel has more of a blue hue to it. I noticed this right away when I saw the new US guns coming out, that the barrels looked outwardly different, and that's because they have this nitrided, I assume, blued color versus the more parked color of the original, and we still have the same muzzle device on the end that the originals had. So that's really all the outward differences there is with regards to the new rifle. The internal differences are interesting, and that takes place. We can see those obviously when we disassemble the gun. We can talk about the sled that shuttles the charging handles. We can look at the new cuts on the bolt carrier itself. And then there's an interesting change to the receiver on the US made guns that I'm going to look for your input on. I have my own opinion on what it might be, but I'd look forward to seeing your comments down below as to what you think this change might be related to. Let's take the new US Scar apart and see what the insides look like. The disassembly is pretty much the same. So we're going to go ahead, drop the magazine out, make sure that the weapon is empty, let that bolt go home. Have a pin right here, push this captive pin across, just kind of whack the lower receiver, it comes right off. This is literally identical to the Belgium made guns. Taking the stock off now, that you have the pistol grip off, just simply lift up, slide off. Again, the UGG boot stock is literally identical to the Belgium made guns. I'm going to take the receiver, take the bolt and carrier out of the receiver. Now with the original, you would grab the charging handle, pull it to the rear, and everything would pop out the rear. You would take the pin out, and then the whole bolt and carrier assembly would slide out the rear. With this one, I'm just going to pull the bolt and carrier out, all right? And then the recoil spring, all that stuff is the same. There are differences to the bolt carrier. We'll talk about that here momentarily. And now, you don't have to do this. This is not required. But if you want to take the little, I don't know, we're calling it a sled. If you want to take the carrier sled out, all you have to do is unhook the non-reciprocating charging handle from, there's a little pin up here now that this hooks onto, and you have to unhook it from that little pin that's up in the front, and now you can pull it to the rear. And then as I do it, the first charging handle just fell out, the downturned one. I'm going to take out the little nubby one. And now I can slide this shuttle system out if I want to. All right, so it'll slide out to about there. Just kind of pinch it, pull it out. You're going to have the locking mechanism that you have to push down on with your index finger that will then draw that shuttle out. Okay? Now, looking at the receiver, here's that change I'm looking for your input on. Notice on the new gun that the receiver is completely open on the original Belgian gun down here on the bottom, and on top we have this shelf now present. And the bolt carrier, as it rides in the receiver, you'll notice, see how it's cut? It's covering up this side of the bolt carrier. And my theory is, this is the side of the bolt carrier where the auto trip would be for full auto fire. It'd be a little ramp that would trip the disconnector. I don't know, I've never seen a full auto SCAR taken apart. On this one, it's wide open, and the bolt carrier just slides right in, and you'll notice there's nothing inhibiting it from sliding in. There's nothing blocking this side of the bolt carrier. So I'm guessing that's a super civilian change, just so making sure that if you find full auto SCAR parts somewhere out there, you can't put them into your US receiver. All right, so let's set the receivers aside. That's the biggest change. Look forward to your comments down below regarding what you think that cut is. Perhaps there's somebody out there that knows what the actual purpose of it is. All right, so we take the gun apart. We have a number of parts. Here's the original system. So when we take it apart, including the shuttle, which is not necessary for basic field maintenance, we have a few extra parts. We have the shuttle itself and an extra charging handle. Again, this is optional as well. Over here, we just have 3 large parts. Taking the bolt out of the carrier is identical. It has the same pin. The bolts are identical. The cam pins are identical, and the firing pins are identical. All these parts will swap with the original Belgium design. So the U.S. guns really, these are your biggest changes right here. Now, if you take a look at the bolt carriers, here's the new carrier on my right-hand side. Over here, here's the new non-reciprocating charging handle. Actually, I have that backwards. There. This is the old carrier. This is the new carrier. And you'll see there's a trough cut here. And that's so that the shuttle can slide over it and the charging handles will clear the carrier. Again, the charging handles do not touch the carrier. Over here, you can see where the charging handle plugs directly into the carrier of the original design. So I could take the bolt and all that stuff out. There's no real reason to, because nothing has changed. All those parts are interchangeable. I get asked all the time, Mac, how can I get involved in the firearms industry? Well, there's no easy answer, but one way you can easily get involved in the firearms industry is to become a certified gunsmith. Modern Gun School has been teaching gunsmiths since 1945. It is accredited college, and also if you're a veteran and have a GI Bill, you can use that to enroll at Modern Gun School. So please swing by and check them out. I have a link in the video description below. Not being able to leave well enough alone, we want to find out if the new non-reciprocating charging handle parts can be used in old rifles, thus converting them to non-reciprocating charging handled guns. There's one caveat here. The answer is no, and here's why. The US gun that I have here has a pin that we can see by using a light, and I can't get a picture of it. I'd have to take the whole front of the gun apart. But there's a pin that's present here that is not present in the original design. And that pin is what works with the new shuttle system or sled system that enables the non-reciprocating charging handle functionality. Without that pin, it won't work. In the original Belgian gun, that pin is not present. And the caveat is, perhaps all the US-made SCARs have that pin present in them, therefore they may be convertible to, if the parts were available, to a non-reciprocating charging handle system. Again, I don't know because I don't have one of the fixed charging handle US-made guns here to find out. And that would be critical to any conversion you would attempt should FN make the parts available. We scoured the internet and we cannot find original FN parts available out there for conversion should the guns accept the conversion. What we did find was High Desert Dog has been making for some time a non-reciprocating charging handle conversion kit for your existing SCAR. His design is completely different than the FN design that we have here. They share no common parts. So, yes, you can turn your old gun into a non-reciprocating charging handle gun, but you have to use aftermarket parts because, to my knowledge, the FN parts don't exist, and they probably wouldn't work in the gun anyway, all depending on whether or not that pin is present. All that said, that's a mouthful. Let's take a look at how the shuttle system works. The sled or the shuttle, and I call it either a sled or a shuttle. But this is the stamped sheet metal piece that rides over the carrier. You'll notice inside there are 2 little pieces that pop out from it, and that's where the charging handle will engage with the sled system. It does not interact directly with the bolt carrier like the original design did. The original design, the charging handle interfaced directly with the carrier. That doesn't happen anymore. This charging handle does not physically touch the carrier. What happens is, when this sled is in the gun, the carrier rides inside the sled. But it's important to point out that there's a little hook on the end of the carrier there that's critical to the function of this system. So when this slides in, you'll notice that the charging handle is riding in this cutout trough. It's not interfacing with the carrier. Slides all the way forward, and then when this bolt goes home, it'll click over, this little spring-loaded piece will click over that hook, and now the two are joined together. So in this condition, the charging handle will be able to pull the bolt and carrier to the rear. But when the bolt is all the way home and in battery, that little pin I was talking about depresses this little spring part and frees it up so that the two are not actually locked together. So when the gun fires with the bolt home, it's free to move in this little sled system. However, when you go to pull the charging handle, this piece is clasped underneath the pin in the front of the receiver. The charging handle is all the way to the rear, and with it all the way to the rear, it can charge and pull the bolt carrier back together. As soon as this pops off the pin, it'll lock onto the carrier, and now the two have become one unit, and now they can be pulled to the rear. But as soon as this goes back home and it hits that pin in the front of the receiver, this will once again disconnect from the bolt carrier, and the bolt carrier will freely move under firing. All right, I hope that's as clear as mud to you guys on how that system works. It's a very simple system, minimal number of parts, seems to be very robust and would hold up to the test of time. At least it certainly appears that it would. So that's also why you can have another charging handle on the other side of the sled, because it doesn't have that long pin that actually interfaces with the bolt carrier like the original design. So what's interesting to note is that the old bolt carrier that has the reciprocating charging handle will drop right in and work in the gun. The tappet on the carrier is in the exact same position as it would be with the gas piston. It would function just fine. The problem we have with the older design is when you go to put the shuttle system in, you can get it to go in, but because there isn't a pin in the front, just lining up the charging handle slot here, because there isn't a pin in the front, there is nothing for this to lock onto, and it doesn't travel all the way forward. It should go all the way forward. It just stops. And so the bolt carrier, make sure I get it on its little runners there, the bolt can never fully go into battery. So the front end up here is completely different, not completely different, is slightly different than on the new receivers that allow that non-reciprocating charging handle system to work. So if you have one of these old Belgian guns, don't get out there and look around for the FN parts. You probably wouldn't find them even if they did exist, and try to convert your old gun to this new format, because it simply won't work. The parts aren't interchangeable. So one thing I don't know if I mentioned earlier or not, and that's the price of the gun. It went up. They retail now for $3,500 or more out there. So they're going up with the cost of inflation, and they're probably charging you for that non-reciprocating charging handle, stamped piece of sheet metal, and this extra nubby charging handle. But it's not uncommon for FN to raise their prices every year or so on their products. So the price definitely went up. The quality. How does the US-made gun stack up to my Belgian-made gun? As far as I can tell, the quality is still really, really good. These are, I mean, granted, they're polymer lower, polymer stocks, all the other stuff. You're familiar with the quality of the UGG boot in terms of people being able to break the locking mechanism if they're too hard with it, but that's not changed. This US gun is the exact same quality, as far as I can tell, as the Belgian-made version. Same accuracy, very pleasant to shoot, great fitment of all the parts. And yeah, it's just generally probably one of the best, if not the best, gas 308s on the market right now. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you would like to support us over on Patreon, again, there's a link in the video description below. Click that link and join our Patreon family. Also, right here on YouTube, you have that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and consider supporting us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.